Episode of the Balanced Growth Show live. I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry, and I am just excited to chat with you about an incredible concept today I call the power of journaling. Now, listen, you may have a journal, you may write in a journal, you may have never written a day in your life. I'm here to tell you that it is a phenomenal practice, and if you're not doing it, you should definitely try it. There is no right or wrong, and I want to really kind of dispose of some myths, but also give you some of my personal experience, a little bit of some research, just a tiny bit, of how this can be helpful for you, your business, your relationships, and even your stress levels. So the power of journaling. Now, listen, I've always been a journaler. It's something that my parents have instilled in me, and quite honestly, in my faith, it's something that I felt I've always done better to journal what's going on in a journal daily or weekly about my thoughts, my feelings, things that have transpired. I've gone on adventures and been able to journal about it. And I've actually spent 2 years in a foreign country as a missionary and journaled literally every day about those experiences, which were just incredible. Now, what does that have to do with business and balance and growing? Quite honestly, everything. I'll tell you why. On the balance side, our brain really needs to let go of a lot of these things that we're holding on to. I had a coach a long time ago, Dave Crenshaw, who wrote The Myth of Multitasking. And he was an E-Myth coach before he met me and certified me as a time management guru with his company. Well, called Time Gym back then. But as we were in the training, he was very adamant of explaining and having me teach his clients as a certified coach that our brain is not a collection point. Well, I first have to tell you, well, what's a collection point? So a collection point is a place where you have data that needs to be sorted, sifted, dealt with, like a to-do list, email accounts, voicemail, text messages, social media. Am I making you stressed yet? Don't go and check all those things right now, but you should have a system for that. I teach that system in the Balanced Growth Method. But for now, I want you just to remember that it's just your brain shouldn't be a collection point, shouldn't be a place where you try to store data. And here's the psychological reason. Psychological reason is our brain doesn't actually like to store long-term, really important information. It likes to put it in a storage bin for us to tap into as needed. But if we haven't taken care of it, it will actually kind of circle around and cycle around into our short-term memory to try and remind us. This is why it's really important to write things down, get them out of our brain, because number one, it reduces stress. So in your journal, if you have ideas, thoughts, feelings, struggles, you can't voice them, just to get it out, a pen to a paper or a magic pen to an iPad, I don't care what you use, just get it out of your brain. Number two is that it actually will enable you to be more in tune with how you're feeling. Emotions, they're a real thing. They help drive us. They help us survive. They help us to make decisions. And you logical, analytical people out there who would differ with me on this and say, no, we're all logical creatures and I only make decisions based on logic, I call baloney. This is a fact of life. Most of us, even the most analytical of individuals, react and act on emotion. How do we feel about it? What's our gut tell us? And, we can call that the spirit working in our life. As those of us who believe in God and recognize his influence in our life. But oftentimes it does come through our emotions as well. And it also comes to our thoughts, our minds. So how does that journaling process work? Well, it helps us to get that out on paper. I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm irritated by a family member. My spouse is driving me crazy. Whatever it is, you have a safe place to let those emotions land. You don't have to take that out on someone else. You don't have to be frustrated, irritated with a behavior, or there may be somebody at work that's driving you nuts, maybe a team member or somebody that works for you that you're struggling with and you don't know how to deal with it. It helps to write out those feelings related to the struggle. Now, while yes, this helps reduce stress, get in touch with our emotional sides of things, um, there's also a good thing about that. You see, when we get the stress, the feelings, the emotions outside of us, we know that our brain is not a collection point, so we're not trying to keep that information here, but also just the emotion and feeling out, it allows the stress to not build up in our hearts, in our arteries. I found out a friend recently who's um, has a quadruple bypass or triple bypass, actually. He'd been through a lot of stressful things in his life these last couple of years, incredible stressful experiences. And, when he went in for the surgery, the doctors were like, hey, have you been under some stress? He's like, and that is a huge cause for heart-related buildup and disease. And I know for a fact that's what's gotten me to this point, from being a financial advisor to studying psychology, human development, family relations at a doctoral level to try to discuss balance. Because I really believe that my father passed away earlier than he should have in his life, 49, from a stress-related heart disease. And I know it's preventable. It's very preventable. So journaling is one of those things that not only is great for the mind, it's great for the emotions, it's great for the heart. The other one that I don't talk about enough is how much just doodling ideas out. Now, I'm a doodler. You don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be a doodler to enjoy journaling, but there are some images in your mind. There are diagrams, there are grids, there are systems, there are workflows that you just have no other place to put than in a journal. So I have a personal journal at home. It sits next to me right there on my nightstand. And every night, that's my practice. Like, I will journal out thoughts, ideas, stressful things, problems, etc. And sometimes business ideas will come, right? After I say my prayers, honestly, that revelation comes to me, those ideas come, and I just write with it and I flow. And in the morning, a lot of times I'll go and I'll take a picture of that and email it to myself. So I'll have it in the morning because of ideas that come about the business. I also have sitting on my desk over here in my office here, a business journal that when I have ideas, not to-do lists, not items of checklists that I have to do, or projects, but ideas, thoughts. I will draw them out. I will diagram those things, and later in my workflows, I will incorporate those or not. They may just be ideas. I look at those later. I'm like, scratch that. Usually on Fridays, I'm looking at content, and Monday, I'm trying to organize the week, and I work on the business. So I will look at those ideas and rip them out, scratch them off, or I will decide on what I should do and how to implement. Most of the greatest ideas I've ever had in business have come from journaling. Not only will it help you in your balance, to keep your mind clear, to keep your heart healthy and stress less, essentially be a happier person, but it'll bring you ideas for the business. Now, just one last little thing. I do think it's important that you do write with a pen or a pencil and paper. Research has shown that you actually have greater recall with non-electrical, type keyboards, etc., or even the Magic Pen might be the one exception, right? Because you're actually still writing it down. There's something going on. It's more connection with the brain, and it's using apparently more muscles, more nerves that are reinforcing the ideas as they're flowing. Okay. Sometimes you might have writer's cramp. You're like, oh, I can't type this through, etc. In fact, when I help my clients to write books, a lot of times will tell them, don't type it out. You're going to get stuck. You're going to get in the editing and you're going to backspace and you're going to be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. You're going to move things around. But when you're writing pen and paper, like, you're just writing. It's flowing, right? The other thing you might want to do is have a tape recorder, an old-fashioned one, or even the micro recorders or right on your phone. Voice memos work really well. I can just take my phone and do a voice memo. If that works better for you, do that. Either way, start journaling. Paper journal, electronic journal is your audio, speaking it out, letting the ideas get out of the brain, away from the heart, and allow you to have greater ideas moving forward for your balanced growth. Hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you for listening to my monologue today about the power of journaling. Now, today we have a fantastic guest. His name is Bill Saunders. Bill, I'm going to invite you to the show and tell us a little bit about your background. We have actually discovered that Bill and I lived in the same town, just not at the same time, right? Bill, you're in Southern California, in a place where I grew up called Simi Valley. So I'm still working on the growing up part. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into insurance.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Perry. And I just have to do a side note really quick. You talk about the voice recorder, and when I was little, when I was like 4 years old, we lived over in Canoga Park, and my dad used to work in Santa Monica, and so every day on his ride home from work, he would actually pull out that little tape recorder and record all the notes that he needed to remember for the next day on that little voice recorder. So that totally just brought me back about 40 years ago to what's going on. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. It definitely can work. I think the
Yep.
downfall to the tape recorder is that like you still have to put it someplace so that you can find it, right?
Right.
So there's an
Right.
extra step, but it does work, and I'm
Yeah.
glad it's worked for him. I've seen many people do that, very successfully. So that's
Yep.
really
So
cool.
yeah, the old and the little mini cassette tapes that he used to have that were in there, all that stuff. That was
Yes.
awesome. So wow, but yeah, no, my life has been a bunch of curves and turns and all that good stuff. But out of college, I graduated from the University of Colorado. Go Buffs, Coach Prime, all that good stuff. Graduated from the University of Colorado back in 2001, and thought I was going to be a football coach as a career. And so I bounced around this country, and as fate would have it, I moved back to California, took a job at Santa Monica College, and ended up meeting my wife within a month after being back here. And when you're at, when you're at a junior college like I was at Santa Monica, you need to have a second job. And so my first was working in juvenile probation. I had done some criminal justice work. I'd been a 911 dispatcher. I really thought that was going to be my calling, but it wasn't. And it really didn't pan out the way that I wanted it to. And so in 2008, when everything was tanking and I needed a job, I took a job as a health insurance salesperson and just sold health insurance and became really good at it really fast. And was doing that really well. And then Obamacare came and cut commissions completely. And so I had to do another pivot. And at the time that pivot happened, Nationwide Insurance reached out to me and offered me a signing bonus and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to open up an insurance agency selling property and casualty insurance." So I said, "Okay, sure, I'll do it." And so in 2014, in December 14, I opened up a scratch agency, meaning I had no clients, I had no book of business, I didn't have anything except for the building I had rented and the computers that I had bought and one employee that I had hired. And from there, took off, got the business up and running. We're now 9 years into the business. I'm now an independent agent. I own my own company, WJ Saunders Insurance, and we're continuing to make money year over year. Utilizing the skills that I've learned over the last decade or so to get things done.
Love it. Now you have a family. You're married. You have two children. Is that right?
Yes. Yep, I got two boys. They are 11 and 9 for the next couple of weeks, and I'll have an 11 and 10-year-old.
There you go. There you go. So you're
Yep.
busy. You've got a
Busy,
lot
very
to
busy.
do. You're running your own insurance practice, which is profitable, and you're doing well.
Yep.
So tell us what your main question is right now at this time in life and business.
So the main question that I have, and it's one that I think we all kind of suffer through or debate with and work through, is work life balance. And really for me, family is the most important thing. Family has bailed me out before. I'd like to think that me being a part of family, I've bailed other people out. I want to make money. I want to make a living. I want to be successful. But success to me has always been not only just the dollars that come in, but also the type of family that I have. And so, how can I continue to grow and scale my business without sacrificing my family in the process?
Yeah, really great question. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this, and I'm gonna kind of bump back. I think when it comes to balance, number one, we need to understand that balance is making time for your highest priorities. Most people that I've interviewed have said they feel out of balance when they neglect their health, they neglect their spirituality, or they neglect time with their family and spouse. Um, Other things are still priorities in life, like having fun, hobbies, those things that, quite honestly, are you need to have them, right? Taking care or being part of the community, we're all part of it somehow, and the list goes on of other things. Even work is a priority. It is one of those. Is this a means to an end, or is this my life?
Yeah.
And I actually know of a football coach, so I wanted to incorporate this somehow, Bill. Yesterday, I read about a football coach who I followed for a very long time because he coached at my alma mater right after I graduated, Bronco Mendenhall.
I know.
Bronco, if you know Bronco,
Yeah,
he's,
I know.
he's just a great guy. He's a great
Small world, but yeah.
yeah. And you're in that football, coaching realm, so maybe you've run into him or
Yep.
know of him. But he left BYU and he went to Virginia, and he really enjoyed his time out there until one day he told his wife, "I'm done coaching," and they went and bought a ranch in Montana where he's been for the last couple of years. They built a home there. They ranch, and he enjoys his horses and taking care of the farm. And the number one reason why, when people ask him, like, why did you do this? Balance. He wanted better balance. Being a football coach, talking about like balance is absurd, right? They're coaching every single day, but he's made a practice. He does not coach on Sundays. Friday nights, they had a lot of the coaches over, or Thursday nights, they had a lot of coaches and their spouses over to their home for dinner. Like, they really tried to incorporate. So that said, I think it's fair to understand that what is really important. And at the end of that interview that I read just yesterday with Bronco, he said, like, I want people someday to go, oh yeah, I know Bronco. Didn't he used to coach football? He that's the kind of reality that he wanted. He didn't want to be
Yeah.
remembered as a football coach, as amazing and successful as he's been for both of those last two programs that I personally am aware of. Now, that said, this is why we have this show. How do we grow a business and keep our balance? And I'm going to say for you, I know you're working, 60 plus hours a week and you've got a family. It seems like you really make time for them when you're there. And it
Yes.
seems like you're very successful at work.
Mhm.
But I would say, is 60 hours really living the dream? Because really, at the end of the day, the only way to maximize is more time,
Mhm.
making more time. So, probably for you, Bill, I would say productivity is going to be your number one best tool. Most of us struggle with productivity, but I'm gonna go into this a little bit deeper because we tend to think, well, I'm a business owner. Well, back to this analogy of maybe football. Really? Are you a business owner or are you part of the team on the field? Football is your jam. So whatever position you played,
Yep.
that, hey, I'm quarterback or I'm defensive end or wide receiver, whatever it is, right? I'm not the coach. In fact, football team, they have many coaches. You have head coach, you get defensive coach, unless you're managing all those things. There are lots of coaches. Sometimes the coaches want to be a player on the field and they come running on. We're like, oh, what are
Yep.
you doing? And then sometimes the players get, they yell at the coaches because they don't like them, but whatever. There's a little bit of some of that. But the end of the day, you are either on the field as a team member
Mhm.
or you're the coach.
Yep.
There's one other step, though. The other step is you could just be the actual business owner and you're watching the coach coach the team. So for you, Bill, I think productivity would really allow you to say, where am I? What are the things that I do best? What's my sweet spot? Is it actually on the field? If so, then you're an insurance agent.
Yep.
If you're an actual, CEO and you're running the company and watching your team and training them on the field, whether that's offensive, defense, marketing, advertising, fulfillment, and operations,
Mhm.
then you're the CEO or the C-suite executive at some point. If you're the actual business owner, then you're working with those C-suite executives and managers, whatever you want to call them, who are helping the team.
Yep.
You just have to decide, who do you want to be? Where do you want to be? And start deciding to work in those specific activities that are going to get you there. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so I worked with thousands of advisors who say they're advisors. And then we look at their time, where they're spending it in every activity, and I find that 25% of the time they're an advisor.
Yep.
75% of the time they are a glorified assistant. Why not hire an assistant? Have them do all the things that you would normally be doing so that you can work less,
Mhm.
be more productive,
Mhm.
or work more in the areas that you really should be working, which I call your work sweet spot.
Yep.
That's what my question would be back to you is, Bill, is like, where do you want to work? Do you want to be the owner up there in the press box, eating the meal, watching the game
Yep.
and watching the returns come in every time they win? Do
Yep.
you want to be a coach on the sideline
Mhm.
and helping your team, or do you want to be on the field and playing your heart out? It's really up to you.
It really is, and that's a really good question because the hard part is I am a good to use the terminology and sort of the analogy that we're doing here. I am a good player. I am a good salesperson. I've gotten myself to be where it is, so it's hard for me to let that go. I have one employee with me right now. I mean, things are difficult in the insurance industry, especially in California right now, with a lot of insurance carriers not writing and stuff like that. So it's like, if I'm going out there and making the sale, it's like, well, that's money that I'm not spending to somebody else to go do that. So, there is that piece of the equation, but I kind of, I treat the insurance market, and we could go on for I could do a whole dissertation on it, but it will come back, and the way that I've been describing to people, it's very much a Forrest Gump situation where right now the hurricane's coming through, and shrimping is really hard. But once the storm passes, there will be, it'll be great, and there'll be a lot of business. And so I would like to kind of position myself so that when that storm clears and the business is able to be written again, to be able to have myself set up so that I can kind of not take a step back necessarily, but take a step up so that way I
Yeah.
can look over it and see what's
Yeah.
going on.
It's a great plan. And for those who are like, hey, I'm on the field, but I want to be in the coaching, lineup there. Fine. What is the plan? What is the action you're going to take? What does it take to get there, to move there? Or if you're on the coaching sideline and you want to be really just the owner of the company, then what does it take to get there? Otherwise, you'll just continually have the same problems being in the same spot of the field or the game, to use this analogy well, and growth won't happen. You may have more sales,
Yeah.
but then you're going to have more clients, and then you're going to have more paperwork, and then you're going to have more underwriting. And I know it because I was there. I worked with State Farm, and I was with Northwestern for years and years, and it is a constant battle. There is no end unless you figure out how to build this team, which as a football coach, you
Yep.
know all about how to build teams. And I would be surprised if you can't take this and really make this fly. So thank you, Bill, for being on the show. We appreciate having you as a guest. And as always, I think everybody has these questions. And so being able to ask these and give some advice to you in a real life situation, hopefully it really applies to those listening today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was really eye opening too. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill. So just in conclusion, I love this analogy, the sports analogy, the team analogy. Like, are you on the field? Are you on the sideline? Or are you in the actual coach's, suite up there watching the game, looking at the stats and seeing those returns come in. If you're Michael Jordan, you don't do too bad as a player. The guy played multiple sports and several teams, and hey, I'm not retiring. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Going back and forth on that. I don't think, to my recollection, that he was ever a coach, but he was a team owner, and he sold for millions and millions of dollars. Great business analogy to look at what he's done in his life. And he's made more as a sports team owner than he ever did as a player. So depending on where you want to be, how you want to run your business is it completely up to you. And I hope that this has been helpful to those listening and watching today. Thank you for being listeners, watchers of, and followers of the Balanced Growth Show Live. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Until next time, remember, live life